new details that have just become available on the case that's been uppermost in all our minds this week, the murder of 2-year-old James Bulger on Merseyside.
The murder of James Patrick Bulger remains one of the most shocking and heart-wrenching crimes in modern history. It is a story that exposed the darkest depths of human cruelty and shattered the illusion of childhood innocence. This is not a tale of redemption or solace. It is one of horror and unimaginable sorrow. The scene was set on February 12, 1993, in the bustling Strand Shopping Centre in Bootle, England. James Patrick Bulger, a lively 2-year-old with curly blonde hair and a cheeky smile, held his mother Denise's hand tightly as they wandered through the stores. The air was filled with the hum of shoppers and the occasional squeals of children playing. For Denise, it was a routine outing, one that would soon descend into the unimaginable. As Denise turned her attention to a shop assistant, James momentarily let go of her hand. In that fleeting moment, 2 young boys, 10-year-olds Robert Thompson and John Venables, were lurking nearby. They weren't there for toys or treats. They were on a sinister mission. The pair had been truant from school that day, roaming the shopping center with a malicious intent that defied their ages. Earlier that day, they had attempted to lure another child from their parents but were unsuccessful. It was as if they were rehearsing for what would become one of the most infamous crimes in British history. The CCTV footage from the Strand Shopping Centre would later capture the chilling moment James was led away. In the grainy black and white images, Thompson and Venables appeared calm, almost casual, as they took James by the hand and walked him out of the center. To onlookers, it may have seemed like older brothers guiding their younger sibling, an ordinary and benign scene, but the reality was far more sinister. The journey that followed was a trail of terror and suffering that stretched for over 2 miles. As the boys led James away from the crowded shopping area, they entered a world of desolation and decay. Abandoned factories, railway tracks, and secluded wastelands. Along the way, James's innocence and trust were exploited as his small frame stumbled to keep up with his captors. Witnesses later recounted seeing the trio, but no one intervened, a detail that would haunt them forever. Some noticed James crying, his face red and tear-streaked, but the boys deflected concern with casual lies, telling one woman he was their little brother. Thompson and Venables' cruel intentions became evident early in their journey. They began by teasing James, pulling at his clothes and mocking him. Soon, their behavior escalated into violence. In a secluded spot, they punched and kicked him, causing James to cry for his mother. His cries, however, fell on deaf ears. The 2 boys were unmoved by his tears, their laughter contrasting sharply with the little boy's distress. James's trust, the innate faith a child has in the goodness of others, was shattered with every blow. As they continued their journey, Thompson and Venables made further stops, each more harrowing than the last. At one point, they brought James to a canal and dangled him precariously over the water. The toddler, too young to grasp the full gravity of his situation, whimpered in fear but was helpless to resist. They dropped him onto the ground instead of into the canal, but the act was not out of mercy. It was a prelude to what would come. His tiny hands, smeared with dirt and tears, reached out in confusion as they dragged him away once more. At a nearby shop, they stole a can of blue paint and later forced it into James's face, the sticky liquid obscuring his vision and making him cry harder. They taunted him mercilessly, their actions growing more sadistic. James, too small to comprehend why he was being treated this way, could only stumble along as they dragged him toward the railway tracks. The humiliation and cruelty were relentless, as if each act of violence fed their need for control and dominance. The final moments of James Bulger's life were a descent into unimaginable cruelty. At the disused railway line, Thompson and Venables unleashed a level of violence that defied comprehension. They struck James with bricks and stones, laughing as they inflicted pain. His cries, now faint and desperate, echoed into the emptiness. One of the boys picked up a heavy iron bar and struck James repeatedly on the head, causing severe trauma. Each blow seemed to erase a piece of James's brief, innocent life, leaving behind a tableau of horror. As the assault continued, they placed batteries into James's mouth and, according to later reports, into other parts of his small body. It was an act of such depravity that it horrified even seasoned investigators. James, beaten and broken, eventually succumbed to his injuries. But even in death, the boys' cruelty was not finished. Would destroy evidence of their involvement. Shortly after, they left the scene, walking away as if they had done nothing wrong. Their indifference was chilling. They returned to their lives, feigning normalcy while James lay abandoned in the dirt. James's body was discovered 2 days later by railway workers. The sight was one they would never forget. The tiny figure of a child, mutilated and left in the dirt, with the weight of a train having severed his small frame. The details of his injuries, catalogued during the autopsy, were almost too horrific to read. He had suffered over 40 distinct injuries, making it impossible to determine which had been the fatal blow. The brutality of the attack defied comprehension, each wound telling a story of unimaginable suffering. The investigation that followed led to the swift arrest of Robert Thompson and John Venables. The evidence against them was overwhelming, from the CCTV footage to witnesses and forensic findings. But the world's shock only deepened as the killers' ages were revealed, 10 years old. How could children commit such an atrocity? What darkness had taken root in such young minds? The question lingered in every headline, every courtroom whisper, as society grappled with the enormity of their crime. During their trial, the details of the crime unfolded in grim detail. The boys' chilling lack of remorse and their attempts to deflect blame only added to the horror. Thompson, often described as the ringleader, displayed a cold, calculating demeanor, while Venables alternated between tears and denial. The courtroom saw them as a paradox. Two boys, small and seemingly vulnerable, who had unleashed a level of violence that defied explanation. Psychologists debated their motives, attributing their actions to a mix of neglect, exposure to violent media, and inherent cruelty. But no explanation could undo the devastation they had caused. The trial concluded with Thompson and Venables being found guilty of murder, making them the youngest convicted killers in modern British history. They were sentenced to indefinite detention, a punishment that sparked its own controversy. As they grew older, the debate over their rehabilitation and potential release ignited fierce public outcry. Many believed they should never be freed, while others argued for the possibility of redemption. In 2001, after serving 8 years, Thompson and Venables were released under strict anonymity and given new identities. Their release was met with widespread anger and fear. For Denise Bulger, James's mother, the pain of losing her son was compounded by the knowledge that his killers were free. The shadow of James's death loomed over the years, his memory a poignant reminder of innocence lost. In the years that followed, Venables would be repeatedly arrested for offenses, including possession of child pornography. These incidents reignited debates about whether justice had truly been served and whether someone capable of such acts could ever be rehabilitated. Thompson, meanwhile, largely disappeared from public view, his new identity shrouded in secrecy. Today, the murder of James Bulger remains a symbol of unimaginable cruelty and the fragility of childhood. It is a story that forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about human nature, justice, and forgiveness. James's brief life was marked by love and joy, but its end exposed the darkest corners of humanity. And though decades have passed, the haunting echoes of that February day in 1993 continue to resonate, reminding us of the devastating consequences of violence and the enduring power of grief. As we reflect on this tragedy, we are left with an unsettling question. How do we, as a society, reconcile with the existence of such darkness in the youngest among us? And what does it mean for the innocence we so desperately strive to protect? Let us know in the comments.